Call this meeting to order. This is a planning session for the City of Bloomington Transportation Commission. Can we please have a call of the roll?
Your mic's not working. Hang on. I'm sorry. I'm going to test the mics. Yeah, okay. Sorry. We're back online. Sorry about that. Kopic. Here. Stromitis.
Here.
Binder.
Present.
Volan.
Here.
Drummy.
Here.
Flaherty.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Strasburg.
Here.
We have a quorum. This is the first of two meetings that the commission is holding tonight. The regular hearing will be held immediately after the end of this meeting. We will have approval of minutes, but there are no minutes to approve since this is our first such planning session meeting. We will then discuss the parking rate study and comprehensive review being conducted by the Parking Services Division of the Department of Public Works. If there is a member of the public here who wishes to speak and the commission wishes to hear public comment after that, we will open it up on a majority vote, and then we will adjourn immediately to have the regular hearing. With that, I'd like to call Michelle Wall, the Director of Parking Services, up to introduce the people who will be speaking about the parking rate study. Ms. Wall, welcome to our first planning session.
Thank you very much. My name is Michelle Wall. I'm the Parking Service Director for the City of Bloomington. I'd like to welcome Walker Consultants. There's three of them here this evening. They are on board to do all the parking consulting that we're asking for. It was sent out to bid. An RFP was sent out to bid. And we welcome them, and we thank them for their participation, and thank you for inviting us to this session.
We're glad to have you here. And just a note here, a planning session, according to our rules, is a relaxed meeting. So I want to encourage being respectful. People should feel free to ask questions without getting permission from the chair or make comments. Either way, we're trying to have a less formal discussion. But I would ask that everyone refrain from that until we've heard the presentation from Walker. Can we ask how long the presentation is you intend to give?
Well, seeing it as a planning workshop is how we anticipated this meeting. So this is a follow-up from the previous meeting. I know there were some questions from that midpoint check-in. So our purpose here tonight is to just be available for questions about the process of this study. I know the time was very limited previously for that presentation, so it was a lot of information in a short amount of time. So we're here to expand on that, give you the opportunity to provide input, as well as go over the scope, because I think that we didn't really have time to go over the scope previously.
Could you speak closer to the mic?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble.
We didn't really go over the scope previously, so we have time to do that, but we don't have a certain presentation set time. It's really, I love that you say it's an informal, casual meeting, because I think that will be most productive for the purpose. Yeah.
Well, I don't know to what extent this commission is new. This commission was created after the study was called for, and yet it's an inheritor of three prior commissions. So we're trying to get our feet under us, and it might be helpful to give us just the barest explanation of what you're doing. And I mean, because I don't think everyone here necessarily familiar with the scope of the work being done. Could you at least describe the scope of your work?
If I may just introduce
and if you'd
myself.
introduce yourselves,
yes,
too.
thank you. My name's Jody Todd. I'm the project lead for this project. I'm joined with my colleagues John Martins and Lauren Algram. Unfortunately, I was unable to be at the last meeting. I had pneumonia and literally had no voice. So these two graciously took over on very short notice to present a midpoint check-in of sorts for you. So essentially, I apologize for that I wasn't able to be there, but I know that there were some questions. I was listening in. I wanted to chime in with some answers, but I was muted and unable to unmute myself. So just to go over the scope, this is a comprehensive rate analysis and policy review. So essentially, this is a big picture look at all things parking in Bloomington. Our scopes items that we have already completed is stakeholder engagement. I know that was a big part of our presentation last time, looking at the efforts that we went through for the parking survey that was distributed publicly. We had over 1,500 responses, 483 open comments. We got a lot of good feedback from the public in that survey. That's a lot more than we typically get, so it was great to have that impact. We also held listening sessions with stakeholders. I know we talked about some of this already, but just to give you some more background, it's been 2 months. And those stakeholders were invited from the community from ESD. So they sent out the invitations for that. We met with everyone who wanted to show up. There were, I believe, 163 entities invited, and there were 18 that showed up. So unfortunately, not everyone likes to participate, but we did get some really good quality feedback. Sometimes those smaller sessions are more beneficial because people are willing to speak out, and they're not just sitting and listening. So I think we got a lot of feedback from that. And we presented that information at that last meeting. We also have a task report that we've completed for that, and it will be part of our full report once it's submitted at the end of the year. We also have completed a benchmarking analysis where we looked at peer cities that were identified based on not only their population, but their proximity to a college campus that was adjacent, that was similar in size to Indiana University. I know we talked about that quite a bit the last meeting. We did pick 5 peers. We also looked at Indiana University just because it shares some common users, not because we think it's important to study what happens at all college campuses adjacent to municipality. So I don't think that we need to do a bigger benchmarking analysis at the universities of those peer cities. But we were able to gain some good insight into how rates compare to that of Bloomington, and also looking at things such as enforcement hours and citations and their processes and fee escalation, things like that. So we're looking at all of those things as comps. Additionally, we're using information through data that we request from parking services. They've been great to get us reports of all the things that their systems are able to garner from utilization reports, from revenues and the expenses that they see, and we're able to look at all of those things big picture to put together kind of a picture of the rate strategy and what it should be. We're also looking at, of course, at Title X. We're looking at the prior parking studies that have been completed for Bloomington. We're also making sure that we keep in line with the climate action plan, the comprehensive plan, and all of the guidelines put forth in the bylaws of this commission, to make sure that our recommendations are in line with the guidelines set by the City of Bloomington. As far as the system review, we're looking at operations as far as how the on-street parking is operated, the garages, the surface lots, in terms of equipment, enforcement hours, enforcement staff, and also John has put together a technology review. So that is one of the key drivers of this study, and the purpose of this is because the technology, the meters are reaching the end of their useful life. So you all needed some help on what to do next. So John has been assessing that and putting together some good recommendations to move forward. All of that is also impacted by the finances. Currently, there are different funds within the parking services, and they all operate independently with some transfers in and transfers out from the general fund. So those are things we're reviewing and comparing those to how we would typically recommend an enterprise fund be run a self-serving parking services, all-encompassing department or unit that would be able to cover its own expenses. Additionally, account for some future expenses like equipment that's necessary, capital reserve funds for unexpected expenses or the long-term maintenance on a garage. Typically, that's been done in the past by asking, hey, we need some money for this. Let's go to the general fund and ask for it, versus planning for it to be self-sustaining through parking revenues. That's also included in the policy review, because we know that everything that's done is driven by Title 15. So we're reviewing that to see our recommendations, making sure if they don't align with those, the policies, that we are recommending changes to those if necessary. So that kind of gives you a big picture of what we're doing. I'll open up for questions.
Okay, the one question I'll lead with before I open it up to the floor is, to what extent are you trying to harmonize this report with the policies already adopted by the city, its comprehensive plan, its transportation plan, and so on? Are those guiding documents that you've used?
Yes, we've absolutely used those documents, and we understand the goals of the city, and we are making sure to consider those in our recommendations.
Okay, once again, your names are Ms.
Jody Todd.
Ms. Todd and Mr.
John Martins.
Martins?
John Martins.
Yeah,
John,
so
fine, John.
Ms. Todd and Mr. Martins, are there questions from commission members for Ms. Todd or Mr. Martins about the study? We'll start with our newest member, Mr. Binder. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm just reviewing the PDF posted on the city website that is the mid check-in, kind of summarizing what your team has found so far. I did notice that of the 1,663 respondents to the survey, just over 6% of them were students at IU. So I guess my question here would be, does your team feel that 6% is a representative number of respondents to the survey, considering the demographics of Bloomington and the region overall?
Well, unfortunately, when you push out a public survey, you can't guarantee who's going to participate. And generally, people that have a complaint are the ones that want to participate, honestly. I think that, you do have a large number of users that are students, and that will be reflected in all of the utilization reports that we are able to view as far as the on-street and off-street utilization factors. I don't know that they would require a different approach. If anything, I think that we're not discounting their opinion. Generally, the student population is more sophisticated in what type of equipment they're able and willing to use as far as app-based programs. I think that the general public would be the ones that would be more leery of modernization. So I don't feel like that that level of involvement in the parking survey would be a detriment to the study. Does that answer your question?
Not exactly, but I'd like to give other commissioners an opportunity to ask questions.
Again, I just want to say at this point, we can be less formal here. If anybody wants to speak up, please do. If anybody has any thoughts they'd like to share with the representatives from Walker. Because if nobody wants to talk, a couple of us will talk. There are some veterans of the Parking Commission here.
Yeah.
Nobody here? Anybody? All right, Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you again for joining us and for the work that's gone into this so far and sharing more today. I was trying to get a better handle when we heard this update in September of kind of what to expect at the end of your report, and I think there was an answer at the time, something to the effect of like, it's up to the city, like where to take it from there, right? This is advice that we're consulting with you for. And so maybe this question is also for our staff, I'm not sure. But I'm trying to get a better handle on like the full picture of what we expect will follow from the report. Like what code changes will the report itself come to this commission, for instance, for engagement as like an item of discussion so we can actually talk about the policy recommendations, their rationale, whether they feel like they're suited to the various guiding documents that Chair Volan referenced. Could someone speak to that, I guess, a little bit more? Like, what are the major things that we expect to happen following the report's finalization?
Well, I think that would be up to Parking Services and you all to decide what happens with the report. We're just giving recommendations based on our observations and best practices throughout our experience in municipalities all across country.
I guess maybe like I can, but maybe focusing that, like I heard threads of it, I think, in your overview of like, you're giving specific technology recommendations, which were in part the impetus for this study. I'm understanding that meters are at end of life. So we expect to get recommendations, then maybe formulate some proposed action related to the metering technology. Also, enterprise level finances and self-sustainability. So that's the type of thing I'm trying to get a better handle on, I guess, is like, is there kind of a list or a way to describe, we expect a suite of Title 15 changes, we expect an update to the way we manage finances, and that will or will not hit this commission, will or will not hit, different entities. We expect to propose a change in technology, and that'll go into the annual budget request. Like, yeah, maybe just a little bit, like, I'm just trying to, again, get a sense of what to expect next and what to be on the lookout for, and to I don't know, it'll help me better engage with.
Just bring the mic, pull the mic down. Pull the mic, just pull it down.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so you're exactly right. What we will do is we will take their recommendations. We will select a recommendation as it serves what we believe will serve the city the best, and we'll bring those recommendations to you here. And it will be about technology. It will be about rates. It will be about any type of changes, code changes, anything that involves parking. Yes, we will select the recommendation that we feel fits the operation as it currently stands and how it's going to improve and take us to the next level. This, for me, this is like building a foundation. And then we'll take it to you guys, and then we'll also, of course, have to take it to the council. But that's all saying that it also has to be approved by administration as well. Mm-hmm. We just need to have everybody's agreement.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And do you envision, like, the city's policy statements on parking are a little thin? Like, it comes up in the comprehensive plan, the climate action plan, the transportation plan, but not ever in a very, at least in my perspective, not a very in-depth way. The parking commission that predated, one of the commissions that predated this commission had like a 2-page policy document that it had, sort of affirmed multiple times, that got a little more specific about, like, essentially the values that are driving the policy decisions. So it might be something like financial sustainability as a value, for instance. And again, some of this is spoken to a little bit in the comp plan and some of those places, but really not very in depth. It's kind of like we're missing depth, in my opinion, on parking policy. And so do you feel like, will there be any outcomes coming out of this report that might get more formalized, I guess, by way
yes.
of more prescriptive
our hope
policy? Yeah.
Is to tie those to the recommendations of those policies and give you a specific example. Just to say, hey, if we change the parking meters, this is why we're changing them, and this is how it complements each of these plans and why.
Okay, terrific, thank you. I can stop talking so others can't, but I do have one small follow-up.
Keep going. It's
Okay,
all right.
last
If
one.
somebody wants to interrupt, they're welcome to.
Let me, like a last, like a very specific example. Like, let's say we want to achieve average 80% utilization of metered block faces. Like, we decide that that's like a policy goal that we want to set, which I don't think is something we've set now. Would that get formalized somewhere beyond a report and like an internal guiding document? Is that something that could actually appear, for instance, in an update to the transportation plan or comprehensive plan, that like that's a thing we're trying to achieve, is like average 80% utilization, to show that we're actually pricing it right, using price signals.
Correct.
To like not have underutilized infrastructure and not be over.
I think that's for further discussion, but I would say, why not?
Okay.
Like, if we're making that
Yeah.
decision collectively, then why not? Yes.
No, let's formalize it. Yeah, great, thank you.
Please.
So when you talk about the meters being their end of life, what new technology, what new features will new technology have, or is it just the fact that they're old and you can't get replacement parts for them?
Yeah, I would speak to that. I would say that, well, one, you have two systems, the on-street and the off-street. So I'll take an easy one, the off-street. The off-street, that equipment you have is by Amano McGann. It's called Opus. So if you buy a Ford, you get a certain kind of Ford. You get a Ford F-150. So think of Opus as their F-150. They're not going to support that anymore in 2 years. That system is end of life. So when you go in the garage and you get a ticket, that machine is what I'm talking about. That will not be, it's not something they sell anymore. It's not something they service. So their new line is called Amano One, which does the similar thing, but it does it differently. It is an online system. It doesn't have a server on site. It goes to the cloud. There is no, when you get a ticket, when you go to the exit, now you have to insert the ticket and it figures out your fee. You scan the ticket. There's nothing to put the ticket in on Amano One. But then you open the whole can of worms of, well, there's a lot of other systems out there that do it a little differently. So you could consider those, or you could go, we've heard a lot of complaints about the equipment, the speed, broken gates, frustration, so that you can also go with a gateless system. So that is another option. This is for off-street, okay? So that there are a lot of other options that are available that not necessarily were available in the past. They were not available in the past. So the off-street's fairly straightforward. What you have is not going to be supported anymore. I think it's after 2027. If you want spare parts, it's kind of like you got to see, do you have any spare parts, Mr. Dealer, or not? So that you have to replace that. Whether or not you go gateless or a similar system where you get a ticket and go through the whole process, that's something we're digging into in the report. I think gateless could be a good option, and there is cost savings, and obviously you're not going to have broken gates if there aren't gates, but we're kind of discussing the option of, it basically uses the LPR and says here's who's parking. LPR is license plate recognition, so it looks at the vehicle and says this car came in, did they pay, yes or no, and we're looking for that payment. That's the off-street. The on-street, they were installed in 2013, off the top of my head. They have had some upgrades. That technology is still similar, but even at the time, in 2013, there was not as much of, they had payment kiosk, which would be a single unit. You have some now. You have some in the surface lots. Those kiosks are quite effective. Now the technology is such that they use the license plate. So you go to the machine, you enter your license plate at the machine, and that one machine takes care of, say, all the single space meters on the block face. So when we look at a sustainability aspect, I mean, right now you have over 1,400 meters, so 1,400 devices that could potentially fail, not work, and you can reduce that to, I think it's around less than 150, let's say, kiosks if you put one on each block face. So you're trying to maintain a system that has over 1,400 pieces to 150. It's a lot more sustainable. If you think about, those single space meters, you have to go to every one of those and collect the coins out of them. With a multi-space meter, you have to go to one per block face to get the coins out. It just takes that a lot less effort. So the multi-space meter for on-street is definitely, if we want to say we want to keep the payment with a coin option, otherwise a lot of municipalities are going with, we call it asset light, where we have more zones that are just with the app. And the app that you have, Park Mobile, I'd say world class. It is a leader in the paid parking apps. I mean, lots of cities use it. You can use it. Many cities I travel to, I use it, and it's very effective. And the program that you have here is very friendly to the user. So you pay at one zone, although there's a zone for every block face. You can move your car around anywhere in the city, and you're still, that time takes with you, and you can stop it, and at the end, if you leave and you still had time left, and not pay the full amount that you originally did. So you have a lot of features built into that app that make it a very user-friendly. IPS is the current meter that you have that takes credit card. I mean, at the time, that was like state-of-the-art. They were the only one that made it. There are several manufacturers that do have single space that offer that, but there's also, conversely, the multi-space, which really is the way to go. If you go with the pay-by-plate, and then you can also incorporate license plate recognition for enforcement. You can just drive and check the plates and see, did that meter pay? Now, you can check the plate and see, did they pay the app? But you also have to look at the meter, the single-space meter. Well, did they pay the single-space meter? So there's a lot of efficiencies there that are gained. So technology has definitely changed, and I think anytime you get something that's in the technology world that gets that old on the on-street, it's more apt to break. And we looked at, it's kind of the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance issues. There's a lot that you guys have to do that you don't have to do.
I was going to throw in one historical bit of info. When the administration in early 2013 decided to install meters, they ultimately decided on the single-space meters they did because they got a deal. It cost about $500,000 less. They got it for about $1 million, the meters that were installed, and they were used. I was actually curious what the failure rate has been annually for meters, if Ms. Wall knows it off the top of her head. But even at that time, and I want to hear it, but even at that time, pay by space and pay by kiosk and pay by plate were available to us. That's just the choice that the city made at the time. Ms. Wall, can you give us just a brief idea of how bad it is with the meters?
The meters actually, so I came in, they were installed in 2013. I came in 2019, April 2019. And unfortunately, there was no guidance when setting up these meters. The people that had purchased the meters had left the city. And so with that, it left it to the parking staff to accommodate all the errors. There was a lot of back and forth with unsure how to use it, don't have the manual, wasn't trained, but it was implemented with our team that they would do call-in, because first they had to just leave a message on a machine. So this speaks to the fault rate. So what happened then, once we started taking those calls and addressing the faults immediately, running the correct reports and addressing that, the fault rate is very small now.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
The batteries are replaced timely. The reports show the meter malfunctions. They show dead batteries. It was just training the staff to know exactly how to initiate what they were going to fix.
But if I recall correctly, I think it's been the general opinion of parking services that if we could go to a more optimal technology, we ought to. I don't think single-space meters are your favorite, are they?
Correct. They're a heavy lift. I will tell you that. They're a heavy lift. We have approximately 1,400 on street right now.
Right.
And somebody has to collect every single one of those meters every day.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Kopic, does that?
I suppose I have two questions. One is a little more speculative in nature, and that would be speaking to kind of a possible future technology switch in our parking system. Realistically, would we be looking at kind of a phased approach where we would operate sort of a mixed system? We would keep individual meters around, and then in certain areas we would pilot or trial kiosks for an entire block phase? Okay. And then I guess my second question is, and this is more for the consulting group, it seems like there's a lot of focus, as well there should be, on downtown parking. Can you describe a little bit about what your process has been so far, or your findings up to this point concerning neighborhood zones or other non-downtown parking related matters? Because I think that's something that was outlined in the Parking Rate Study and Comprehensive Review page on the on the city website, but I haven't seen much information about or discussion about.
Sure. Yeah, we are focused on downtown parking and the residential areas. So part of that residential analysis is we're looking at all the number of permits that are issued by zone, looking at a comparison of the spaces that are available, also looking at the procedures to apply for a permit. As we know, there are a lot of homes that are turned into multi-unit facilities, and those people are not eligible for a permit, but they think they are. So that causes some problems and some stress. One of the recommendations that we're looking at is to prioritize homeowners to make sure that they can get a permit before tenants. We're looking at those rate comparisons, but also looking at the way that those are enforced and administered. We're looking at doing a similar LPR approach where the permits are issued and tied to your license plate versus a sticker. That makes enforcement a lot quicker, so they're not having to stop and look in every vehicle to make sure they have the right zone, right sticker. The LPR scanner can do that very easily to identify those that are not in compliance.
I just actually have one more question, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Go on.
are there any kind of major aspects to the parking system here in Bloomington that you feel are kind of not in the scope of the study? It seems like you're being fairly comprehensive in all the aspects you're looking at, but I mean, are there, especially in comparison to maybe other studies that you've been commissioned to conduct in comparable situations? I mean, are there specifically, areas of Bloomington's parking system that you don't feel like are going to be talked about in this final report, like by intention?
I don't think I would say there are areas. I think that we do lots of different scope items for different municipalities, and you can get very granular in that analysis. I think at this point, this study is focused more on big picture. We are supporting all of our recommendations with reports that are available as far as utilization, but we're not digging down into, we're not performing parking occupancy counts, for example, where some municipalities, they take that step, and that might be something that they want to come back and do. You guys want to come back and look at that in more detail. But there are also technology advancements that you can have all of that available electronically versus walking and counting cars. But I don't believe that there's anything. I think that the scope is comprehensive for this level of analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few questions, but since I'm the chair, if anybody wants to interrupt me, please do. Again, we're more lax rules here. My first question is, why not benchmark at least one or two other universities as well? I mean, effectively, they run parallel neighboring an operation within the scope. I mean, to say that IU's parking doesn't affect Bloomington parking would be absurd. Like, clearly, people are making value choices. I know that the last time I checked the data in 2022, Indiana Avenue was the busiest, the highest demand parking block in the city, and the average person was parking there for about an hour. It was a student going to class. That they weren't necessarily using shopping at restaurants and the like. By far, it was the busiest pair of blocks. So why not look a little bit more into how other universities affect other cities like us?
Well, I would say, you're getting the impact of the peer cities that we're looking at. Their parking systems are also accounting for whatever impact the university has on their municipal system. But if we look at how a university manages their parking, it's completely different. You have a different set of users. You have your faculty, your staff, different demand, and it's highly permitted is the way that those are generally organized. And I feel like because we chose peer municipalities that already have the university impact on those municipalities, that I think they're relevant. And I
Okay.
don't see the need to do the universities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Getting to permits, is it within the scope of your mandate, well, your conception of the report that you may be considering differential pricing among neighborhood zones. In other words, last I counted, in the last reports that I did, of the 10 neighborhood zones in the city, half of them were oversubscribed and half of them were undersubscribed. The price should go up in some of them, the price should go down in others. Is that something that you are prepared to make a recommendation for, or is it something that you believe that all zones should be priced the same?
We'll definitely analyze that and can look at it from that perspective. I think that, the difference in kind of demand-based pricing in a residential component is because people don't want to pay to park in a zone because it's cheaper, but it's, 3 blocks or 4 blocks removed from their residence. You have a proximity issue, I think, with this, that we'll definitely look at that. I don't know that that would be one of our final recommendations, but we can certainly evaluate it.
I mean, I'll just give you something to highlight as Zone 6, the Garden Hill neighborhood, because we overdid it there.
Yeah.
There's maybe 100 permits sold a year, there's 240 spaces on the street, and many residents are wondering why they can't buy a permit because of our overly restrictive law.
Okay.
So I would hope that at the very least you would provide a recommendation for how to change that.
Yes.
But as long as variable or differential pricing is an option for you, that's what I'm hoping to hear.
We'll definitely evaluate that.
Okay. The same goes now for metered blocks. Is it something that you're prepared to recommend that different areas of the metered zone be priced differently
I think
based
that
on demand?
demand-based pricing is trendy, and it can be impactful for large cities. I don't know that Bloomington is there yet. I feel like the way that the utilization reports are available right now it doesn't inform that decision, mainly because the park mobile zones, even though they are by block face, as John mentioned, you can park here and you can pay in one zone and park anywhere. So it doesn't necessarily translate to utilization. There are technologies available where you can tie those systems together in a dashboard interface where you can look at real-time enforcement or real-time utilization by space or by block face, and that could set you up to do that potentially in the future. I don't feel like Bloomington's there yet. That said, I don't think that it's a bad idea to get that framework in place so you could make those changes easily in the future. And part of this campaign is, we're looking at all things such as wayfinding, branding. We found a lot in our survey that people weren't even aware of the garage parking, where it was located, that it was cheaper than on-street. So I think that's a big piece of this, is just education, so that the framework is there, and when you're ready to implement those kind of changes in the future, it's easy to do.
Now, I don't know if this makes any difference, but when the meters were installed, they did have the option of tying Park Mobile to the meter so that if you paid by Park Mobile, that it would light the meter up. And the administration then decided not to do that simply because of the expense. It's not like we haven't been capable of doing that. It's just no one has revisited that question. I don't know, did Parking Services ever think about pulling that trigger since Ms. Wall came on board? Did you ever think about doing that?
So we did, but because the meters are at the end of their life, like they were at the end of their life a
Yeah.
while back, we weren't going to invest we had to upgrade because when they were purchased, they were 2G. We had to upgrade and do a $350,000 increase to our budget because they had to be 5G. So our goal was to maintain until we could afford to do a rate study as shared in the Parking Commission, and then pursue a new technology.
Okay, thank you for that update.
You bet.
So I don't know if that makes a difference. I mean, so let me just understand you. You're saying that Bloomington is too small to differentiate between areas of the city? Like I can tell you that Kirkwood and Dunn
Sure.
we should be charging $2 an hour, but parking in front of the convention center, which is be used at 2 to 3% of its capacity, should be 50 cents or 25 cents until we know what the price should be. Are you saying that we're not ready for variable pricing yet?
Based on our, the parking survey, the responses that we got to that survey and our stakeholder involvement, there were a significant number of people that still want cash-based coin availability to pay. And that tells us that it's kind of I don't hate to say sophistication, but sophistication of the user and what they're ready for. And I think that we're already getting some some input from local business owners that they don't even want to pay the rate that's there
They don't-
now.
sorry?
That they don't want to pay the rate that's in existence now, which is very low. So, the risk you run by implementing that type of dynamic pricing is that people won't park there, and then you'll overcrowd all of the other areas where parking's cheaper. So it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to meet a utilization threshold and you want to keep it at a certain point, it can be helpful. And I'm not saying they won't be ready right away. I just think that the overall branding of the system, education for the users of where parking is located and what value they're getting for their parking. There was a lot of questions about the transparency of parking revenues and where do those go? Why do I have to pay to park? Where's that money going? I think that education of the users for those types of things, and this is what your parking fee is paying for, can go a long way. But at the end of the day, people will just seek alternatives.
Are you using data from any time after 2024 in your studies? What is the range of data you're using to analyze?
Yes. For the financials and the Park Mobile data, we've looked at from 2023 through June of 2025. That's where we had a cutoff, where we were analyzing it. So we're analyzing a big chunk of data. Just for Park Mobile, for 2024, had over 700,000 transactions, 102,000 unique users.
How many?
102,000 unique
Okay, well,
users.
that's my next question is, are you looking at that data year to year as opposed to just as one big chunk?
Yes.
Because one trend I saw, I studied all the data from 2017 to 2022. I have 9 million transactions in a
Yes.
database somewhere.
Right.
And one of the things I saw was that even during the pandemic, the ratio of people paying cash, credit card, or Park Mobile was dramatically changing. Cash was plummeting, Park Mobile was skyrocketing, credit card use was slightly going down in that 6-year period. One of the things I noted was that in 2018 matched the data for 2022. There were about $2.5 million in revenue in 2018, and the city had gotten back up to about $2.5 million in revenue. But the difference in the number of transactions was stark. It had dropped from 1.9 to 1.2 million. So that means that people are parking for longer, and that the value of $1 an hour has dropped. I mean, we haven't changed the price since 2013. So literally $1 an hour is worth 75 cents today, and it's showing in the data that people are. I mean, the whole reason we put meters in was to prevent people from camping out in parking spots, and that's what I'm afraid is happening now. Have you seen anything like that so far in the data post-2022?
We haven't analyzed those trends specifically, but we can go back and look at that. I think just in general, we find that COVID had an impact up until 2022, 2023, till when things got back to normalized. So generally, we don't go back any further than that, but we'll certainly look at that trend to see, how that plays out. But I think at last I looked, it was like 38% cash transactions for the on-street versus credit. I mean, that doesn't take into account the Park Mobile. That's just in-meter transactions.
Right.
but it's fairly significant.
Yeah, I would like to see
Yeah.
data broken out by year to see
Okay.
if there's a trend we can identify. One more important question. Is your study also considering the construction of parking supply? As in, will you be making any recommendations about, say, how much parking should be built in new construction of residential buildings, or the apparent demand that might call for more structured parking, or will we find that there is too much structured parking? Are you looking at that kind of overall question of supply?
No, the scope of this study does not address parking demand. I will say, though, that we have considered the convention center and the impact that that's going to have on the area. And we've also looked at, how many spaces are underutilized in existing garages that are adjacent that could be used instead of purchasing and demoing buildings to provide more surface parking. We will present like what is available for uses like that. And that's just like an extra commentary. We're not looking at supply and demand in this study.
Are you looking at, when you're talking about the convention center, are you also taking into account surface lots that are adjacent to the convention center, such as owned by the county, in that potential demand for the convention center?
No, we're just specifically identifying the availability of the parking garages, the City of Bloomington parking garages that could contribute to that demand, not necessarily projecting the demand for the convention center.
Okay. Again, I got a couple more, but I want to give people chances. Did you have a question? Ms. Davis?
Ever since we've had metered parking, we've not had a separate pricing structure for people with disabled license plates or hang tags in the city. Some cities do. So I wondered if that was if that came up in your study at all.
It hasn't come up. I know that we have the location of all handicap spaces specifically, but in terms of different parking rate just at a general meter for those who might have a handicap place or placard, we hadn't considered that, but that's something we can look into.
It's been a while since I looked into it, but I was doing some research on this some years back, and it's can be kind of contentious, and some cities have gone from it being free, like Chicago, free, or the parking period is longer, or Chicago then went to only disabled veterans. It was free. So it's an interesting thought, but in my role as representative from the Council for Community Accessibility, I thought it'd be worth asking, and if it is possible to address that question at all in the course of this, that's great. If not, maybe it's something for us to discuss in the future.
I wanted to follow up on that. Is it something that is part of your scope?
It's not specifically, but we'd be happy to at least provide some best practices or case studies that we've seen in other areas and just provide you with that
I think that
data.
would be the minimum. I think that one of the concerns with different prices for disabled parking is that then what people do to prevent gaming of the system by people who are not disabled
Sure.
and who are just trying to find cheaper parking. If you have any cases that address how they address that, that would be, I think, particularly of interest.
Okay.
Mr. Flaherty?
Thank you. When we heard this 2 months ago, I mentioned that we do have some, pretty specific language and directives in city code for this commission, one of which is kind of inheriting something the Parking Commission had taken up, which was to produce or oversee an annual analysis of parking asset management, and that included reporting on costs and revenues for all types of city-owned parking surface, structured, metered, neighborhood, et cetera, documenting utilization rates and longitudinal trends and other data analytics. And I think I always envisioned that like we would, it was far too much work for a volunteer commission to be able to reliably, consistently take on. But it's really important, actionable information from a policy perspective. And like I sort of envisioned that this commission would ultimately not be ourselves actively producing the document, but helping source the structure of like a uniform template of what we want to report on every year that is achievable, that we can adequately resource. It strikes me that a lot of this report contains aspects of it. Are we considering this to be a proto version of that, or will it just help us inform what that could look like going forward? This is probably a question for city staff more than
That's a
our
good
consultant
question.
friends, but.
Yes, I think Ryan and I have talked about this before. Anything that you can provide, this will start the process, but it will not provide that documentation or that parameters of what you're looking for. But if you start the process and have a template, then we can fill it in for years to come. And if we do get better technology and can have a dashboard, that'll be great, because then that will be a fillable and we can have it on our parking website as well.
Got it.
So the
That's-
match.
That sounds great. Yeah, it seems like this is covering a lot of what we would need, and even where there are some gaps, it can help us identify, okay, we want to be able to track X, and that wasn't part of the scope of this study, but this is helping surface the key questions. So yeah, just flagging that as something that we'll want to come back to maybe in a future planning session to continue to ideate and then finalize ultimately.
But
the
just to
format
be
for
clear
product.
then, so neither Parking Services nor the consultant necessarily saw this as fulfilling our objective to have an annual report, right? Like, we didn't even exist when you sent out the RFP for this, so. Yeah, this did not exist. Yeah. So, okay, so as long as no one has any illusion that this is somehow the template for an annual report, then I think everybody's on the same page. Yeah.
Provide early on, if you expect a report in January 2026, let me know, because I will need to provide that information, because they did till June of 2025.
Yeah. No, we're not even there yet. I think we still need to figure out what that report's going to look like. So, because the Transportation Commission as a whole has to report on transportation, not simply parking. Any other comments, Mr. Midas?
Yeah, so maybe this goes back to what the Parking Commission was doing before this body was created. So who's the one that's actually going to be creating the goals for these policy recommendations? Like we talked about, if our goal is utilization rates versus profit versus demand management, when are those being set? And I assume those are coming in before you make recommendations in order to fulfill those goals?
Well, I'm going to jump in here and say that the comprehensive policy adopted by the Parking Commission has yet to be discussed by this body, which again inherited the commission. And I'd like to make sure we get that policy document. It's a one-page document, not even 2 pages. Has 6 bullet points on it. I like to make sure that the consultants have it, so that, because they're talking about parking, and this was what the work the commission did, the most significant thing they did. So at the very least, we can start there, but I think it's going to be up to this commission to at least re-adopt those goals, or develop a new set of policies and goals. But I mean, we should start with the transportation plan, and we have to figure out what an annual report would look like. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That's good. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the goals would be set in place and adopted before there's any recommendation from the study, ideally. And then, was there any look in your other cities that you're looking at as to what the parking fees are going towards in the different cities? And is there going to be any recommendation for like the usage of parking fees as part of this at all?
As far as benchmarking, we're not privy to what their plans are. If it's not, you all have your parking rates listed in your policy, but not all of them do. So it's mainly based on a snapshot, current snapshot, and then we'll be making those recommendations based on the variety of points that we want to solve. So that would be the financial solvency and also considering all those different points.
We're getting close to the end of our time.
Okay.
Are there any other thoughts that commissioners want to give to the consultants on their way out here for the report? One thing I wanted to say was, can you please make sure that you break out the student responses to the survey as you can, so we can see just what students thought about parking? Even though they only represent 6% of the interviewed, we might find their opinions useful in that context. Yeah. Mr. Drumming.
I have a question. With more modern technology in terms of parking, is there any system in place that allows business owners to easily easily pay for their customers to park near their facilities using public parking?
And for on-street parking, since you pay when you park, there's not really an easy solution. If you're a business owner and you said, hey, I want to take care of your parking in advance, if you have multi-space meters, some allow you to give a code. So you could say, hey, but I have to know the customer's coming, so that's kind of hard. You know, when I go, I don't tell the restaurant, hey, I'm coming in advance. I don't even make an appointment for a haircut. I just show up. So they would have no way to give me a code in advance. But maybe they give me a code for the next time. Say, hey, next time you come, here's the code. Or maybe they say, hey, did you pay for all your time? And I'll give you a code for part of that. That's a potential option. It is difficult. Even in the off-street, if it's not gated, you don't get a ticket. That's one of the challenges we point out. You come in, you park. If you need to pay before you go to the establishment, it's a challenge. It becomes a challenge.
John, I don't want to interrupt you, but we do validate parking in the garages. So if you're interested in validating if somebody's going to come and park in the garage, we do sell validations. So that is an option. You'll just have to see Jess, the garage manager, and she can sell you. We do that for many, many people in downtown when they know they have company coming, visitors.
While you're there, can you just give us a brief outline of the rest of the timeline for the study? When do we expect a final report?
Yes. After speaking with Jody today, they expect a final report at the end of December.
Okay, so it'll be
Unless-
ready for the January meeting for us to, we'll get a chance to read it before the January meeting.
Hopefully. If their timeline, I don't want to push them. They're on financials right now.
Maybe I should
So my
ask.
understanding, yeah, maybe ask them, but as long as no huge hiccups with the financials, then my understanding is the end of December. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, please.
Yes, I think we'll be able to issue that. And I think that, that report will go to parking services. Then we can have some back and forth if there's any clarifications that need to be made or anything that we didn't cover that we need to cover. But I wouldn't anticipate an extended period for that review from your group. So I would say safely by the end of the year.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt, but we are a minute over.
Right, we're wrapping it up.
Yeah, okay, I just
So-
want to make sure.
Okay, any last words? I'm also looking forward to a neighborhood zone and, reportage from you all too. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time. Thanks to Parking Services for bringing them here and for us having this conversation. I think there's a lot more to talk about. Again, I would like to ask engineering or planning to make sure that the comprehensive policy of the Parking Commission be forwarded to them so that they can include it or at least be thinking about it as they, because it's the closest thing there is to any kind of explicit policy on parking that the city adopted. And it went through many deliberations, so it was pretty well vetted by the commission. Thank you again. With that, is there any desire from members to have general public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We'll take a 3-minute break and then begin the regular hearing. This meeting is adjourned.